Mr. Speaker, we welcome the general election, but this is a Prime Minister who promised there wouldn't be one. A Prime Minister who cannot be trusted. She says it's about leadership, yet is refusing to defend her record in television debates. And it's not hard to see why. The Prime Minister says we have a stronger economy. Yet she can't explain why people's wages are lower today than they were 10 years ago, or why more households are in debt, 6 million people earning less than the living wage, child poverty is up, pensioner poverty is up. So why are so many people getting poorer? Mr. Speaker, if she's so proud of her record, why won't she debate it? Wages falling, more children are in poverty. And the last Tory manifesto, page 28, said, "We will work to eliminate child poverty." They only eliminated the child poverty targets, not child poverty. In 2010, they promised to eradicate the deficit by 2015. In 2015, they promised to eradicate the deficit by 2020. Austerity has failed. So does the Prime Minister know which year the deficit will now be eradicated?
The Right Honourable Gentleman, I know it's taken the Right Honourable Gentleman a little time to get the hang of these Prime Minister's questions, but I have to say to him that week in and week out, he stands up and asks me questions and I respond to those questions.
Only this year, the new Chancellor pledged to eradicate the deficit by 2022. I do admire Tory consistency. It's always 5 years in the future. Another Tory broken promise. The Prime Minister leads a government that's increased national debt by £700 billion, more than every other Labour government in history put together. Debt has risen every year they've been in office. We know their economic plan was long-term. Does the Prime Minister want to tell us how far into the long term it will be before we get the debt falling?
The Right Honourable Gentleman stands up and talks about a debt. This is a Labour Party that will be going into the election pledged to borrow an extra £500 billion. And what does that mean for ordinary working people? Well, I'll tell the Right Honourable Gentleman what it means. We know what Labour's plans would entail because we've been told by the former Labour Shadow Chancellor. He said the following: if Labour were in power, you'd have to double income tax, you'd have to double national insurance, you'd have to double council tax, and you'd have to double VAT as well. That's Labour's plan for the economy.
All her government has delivered, Mr. Speaker, is more debt and less funding for schools and hospitals. Schools funding being cut for the first time in a generation. The Prime Minister is cutting £3 billion a year from school budgets by 2020. She says they've created a stronger economy. So why are there tax giveaways to the richest corporations while our children's schools are starved of the resources they need to educate our children for the future?
What would Labour give us? The same old one-size-fits-all, local authority-run schools. No choice, good or bad, trust your luck.
Parents taking their children back to school for the summer term, many will receive a letter from the school begging for funds to buy books and fund the school. The Conservative manifesto promised the amount of money following your child into school will be protected. It isn't. It's another Tory broken promise. For the first time in its history, Mr. Speaker, NHS funding per pupil per patient will fall this year. The NHS has been put into an all-year-round crisis by this government. Why are more people waiting in pain and millions of elderly people not getting the care and the dignity that they deserve? A broken promise of the Tory manifesto, which said they will continue to spend more on the NHS in real terms. Say that to those waiting at A&E departments. Say that to those that can't leave hospital because social care is not available. Mr. Speaker, isn't the truth that over the last 7 years the Tories have broken every promise on living standards, the deficit, debt, the National Health Service and schools funding? Why should anyone believe a word they say over the next 7 weeks?